Welcome to the Advisor Summit, the podcast where financial advisors gain analytical insights and tactical strategies from the industry's top minds. The new episode is starting now. Today, we're joined by Libby Greiwe, founder of The Efficient Advisor, where she helps financial advisors build more efficient, systematized businesses so they can reduce overwhelm and actually enjoy their practice again. After experiencing firsthand the demands of 80-hour weeks early in her career, Libby realized that most advisors don't have a knowledge problem. They have a systems problem. Now, she helps firms streamline operations, simplify client experiences, and scale with the right infrastructure in place. Libby also shares her insights through the Efficient Advisor podcast, and we're excited to have her with us today. Please welcome Libby.
Hi, Libby. Welcome to the Advisor Summit podcast. We are so excited to have you here. And honestly, I feel like it's just an honor to be able to talk to you and to know you and who you are. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. I feel like we're both kind of the same energy, so this will be a good time for sure. So I kind of wanted to just start it. I mean, you've built such a cool program and an efficient program. And I think in today's day and age, a lot of people are looking for efficiencies. And that is kind of the whole name of your game of what you do. So kind of just in a brief summary, can you kind of give the advisors what you do, how you help them? Because you really are a huge piece of the industry.
Yeah. And so where we do our best work is we help advisors build systems and processes so that they can deliver an exceptional client experience and then have kind of both the business and the life that they want. So, right, there's this seeking efficiency, but efficiency isn't really all that great if it's not actually effective. And what good is it to have this super efficient, super effective business if you're not actually enjoying it and having a good time doing it?
No, I think that's so true. Like there really is a life, I hate to use this word, but like work-life balance, but it really is a thing. Like you need to enjoy what you're doing. You need to enjoy how you're serving people. And there is a level of enjoyment there that needs to be addressed. So I love that. And you came from the advisor background. You were one yourself. So kind of talk about maybe those initial experiences that shaped you into wanting and serving this advisor world.
Yeah, so I started my practice back I'm an old lady, so this was 2004. So like 100 years ago when you had to walk uphill both ways in the snow, I started my practice back in 2004. And I was kind of your typical advisor in the sense that I was grinding out the hours building the business, right? Like it was not uncommon for me to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week out there doing the thing. Now, this was before I had kids. Yep. And nights, weekends, a client wanted to meet Friday at 7 p.m. Like, yeah, sure. I'm there. I'm your girl. Right. Yeah, no problem.
Nothing going on.
Right. And then in 2008, something very scary happened for me as an advisor. And yeah, the market dropped and clients freaked out and all of that stuff. But what happened for me was way worse. Like we found out we were pregnant, and this was great because we wanted a baby, but it was really scary because I was in that moment of, oh man, there's no way that I can be the kind of mom that I want to be and do what I'm doing. Like this is not sustainable. This is the fast track for burnout without kids. And now throw a baby in the mix. I'm going to have to completely change the way that I'm doing. And it was kind of in that moment that I realized, while I was at the top of my broker dealership and I was making a lot of money and I had a team and an office building and all of this stuff from the outside looking in, it looked like I was running a business. But what I realized in that moment was that I didn't actually have like a business, like the kind with a vision and systems and processes. I just had like a really, really, really busy Libby. And if I didn't show up, stuff wasn't going to happen. And I realized, okay, that is that moment that something's got to change.
Yep. And a busy Libby is not going to be long-term the ideal place to be, because if you cannot remove yourself and the business can't run itself, it's really not, it's so dependent on you and your work ethic, which is exceptional, but not ideal. So
there's no leverage, no scalability of that. The only way to dig myself out of it was to either stop, pause, and focus on how do I actually work on fulfillment in this business, or how do I clone myself? And I'm, while I went to school for a science background, it was not in chemistry. So cloning was not an option.
And one day, I'm sure in 2046, maybe we can do that. But I don't know if the world needs really two of us. I think we're all so
That's
individual.
exactly it. That sounds like a scary proposition.
Yes. No, for sure. And I think a lot of the advisors you help with maybe are in that position. They're really busy. They're really hard workers. And I love that about our field. It's very entrepreneurial. It's very hardworking people. But what's kind of the first step that you help advisors kind of identify, hey, you really do need processes and you really do need systems. So kind of walk us through kind of those first steps when an advisor comes to you.
Yeah. So as far as like first steps, like it's really like, so where we do our best work is those advisors who there's nothing inherently wrong, right? Like you look at the business, clients aren't leaving in droves. People aren't mad. Outside looking in, kind of like it was for me, right? Everything looks like they've got it all together.
Yeah.
It's the advisor that kind of underneath the surface, like if you were to pull back the curtain a little bit, they're the ones that are sitting there thinking, okay, like everything that I prayed for is coming true, right? Like I have good income, I'm able to pay my bills, I have clients, I have a viable business, but I still feel like I'm drowning. I still feel like I'm constantly overwhelmed. Or that kind of that sinking feeling of like, I know like clients aren't leaving, they're not mad, but I know I should be doing X, Y, or Z. Like, so if we find ourselves using that word should a lot, like I should be more consistent with my meeting cadence. I should be reaching out more often. I should be having more contacts or doing value adds or all of this other stuff that I see splashed all over, LinkedIn or podcasts that I should be doing these things, but I just don't feel like I have the capacity. That's kind of that first, like the first step in anything is awareness, right? That that there is this issue. And the good news is it's completely solvable.
Okay. I love that. I love that it's like, yes, you do have an issue, but it is able to be solved, because I think a lot of people immediately go deep dive and they're like, I have this issue. I don't know where to begin and I don't know how to even start it. So everything is figure outable, I say. So it's just a matter of finding the right people to help you with that. And that's really where you come into play. So I love that. Can you kind of walk us through this idea of a model week? You talk about this a lot on LinkedIn as well as kind of just in your practice as a whole. But what are some common mistakes advisors make when they try to structure their calendar and try to make that model week, but they're just not quite there?
Yes. Okay. So the biggest mistake that I see people make with a model week is that they put something down on paper, they try it and they go, oh, that didn't work for me. Oh, my brain isn't organized like that. I don't work well under those types of conditions. The model week, when we approach a model calendar of any kind, we have to realize from the get-go that it's going to take a zillion iterations to get it right and get it dialed in. And then once you get it right or get it dialed in, as your business grows, as you add team members, as you change your client experience, as AI continues to step up, your model week is going to continue. It has to be this living, breathing kind of organic thing that, yes, you want to lock it in and memorialize it, but you also need to continuously reiterate it to make sure that it is performing at kind of the absolute max. So a couple of mistakes that I see is when we lay out a model week, that number one, if you are so I started my business when I was 22. And I remember thinking like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur and this sounds so amazing. I can sleep till noon and I could work till midnight if I want to. And I could work on a Sunday afternoon if I felt like it after church, and I could get up early on Saturday. Like I thought being an entrepreneur meant like so much freedom. And I really kind of like rebuked this idea of structure because it sounded awful. It sounded like a 9-to-5. I thought,
like
entrepreneurs don't have structure. Right. And then as soon as like I got pregnant, as soon as I started hiring people, I realized, actually the one way to have freedom is to actually have some structure. Yeah. Like there is no way I could have gone from working 80 hours a week down to just 24 without being focused and structured. Yeah. So some of the mistakes that I see, or some of kind of the best ways to approach model weeking, is really number one, to do an actual time study of how you're currently spending your time. Where do you have the most energy? What kind of work lights you up and gets you excited, and what kind of work drags you away from that energy center? Like, what is the stuff you're good at? What brings you joy? And we see people building model weeks a lot off of what they think it's supposed to look like. So for me, especially when I was running my practice and I had small children, I should not be talking to another human about anything intelligent until 10 a.m. Like I need 3 cups of coffee. I need to be like, my brain needs to be fired up and on. I need to have done something else that morning to really get me going. And so when I first built my first model week, I remember being like, oh, well, Dave in the cubicle next to me, right, kind of guy, he starts at 8 a.m. and he does breakfast meetings with clients, or I'd go to regional meetings for my BD and hear what other people, and I started building it to like what I thought it should be versus like building it around what I was naturally doing anyway. And so I started a macro level. So before we even get down to like what a week should look like, I have found it was most helpful for me to look at everything. We start with like a yearly rhythm. And so for me as a mom, what it looked like was, okay, January, we had just had the holidays. Everything was crazy. The kids are back in school. I thrived on that new year, new you energy. So for me, starting off the year with big projects, seeing all of we did cluster meetings. We didn't do surge scheduling, but we didn't do meetings all year long. We did what we call clustered. So I would do my big clients, big projects, big like in-depth planning stuff early part of the year. And then I'd have stuff taper way off because if you're a parent, you know, April and May are pure hell when it comes to school.
Yeah, why are we throwing like these, also the spirit weeks? Yeah, they can just go. They gotta go.
Yes, like we're gonna need you here Thursday to watch your kid glue 2 popsicle sticks together. And we're going to need you to take the whole afternoon.
First of all, it's not even that impressive. I'm so sorry. Like, it's really not. Every kid can do it.
I always said my kids brought home beautiful garbage, and I loved it. Right. And I wanted to be there to be part of it. But it is. Yeah, it's Spirit Week. It's tomorrow is, you know, whatever day. And you're like, oh, it's just a lot. And so for me, I found like those were the perfect times to actually taper off workload in our business and to do projects, to do behind the scenes work, to clean stuff up, to be preparing for the fall. And so we would kind of lull in the summer because I had my kids more. I was trying to be more involved and have more home time. And then when the kids went back to school in August, it was like, okay, here we go. Like they're back. We're back in a routine. We're back in a schedule. And I had all of that energy again. And then we'd taper off at the end of the year. So the first thing I'd love for advisors to do is like, look at what is your natural family rhythm or the natural rhythms of your clients. So if you are an advisor that specializes in educators, right? You know, they're off at Christmas and the summer. So your rhythm might look different than mine. Or if you have clients that are snowbirds, your rhythm is going to look different than mine. So first kind of establishing like, what do those natural rhythms look like? When do you have a lot of energy? When do you have a lot of capacity? Because you don't want to be doing your big marketing campaigns or your client surge meetings in April and May when your home life is also a hot mess. So like first establishing an annual rhythm and then kind of working down to, well, what is happening in each of these chunks, and then getting down into the model week and figuring out what kind of serves what your business is doing in that moment.
Yep. Nope. And I love how individualized it is. Like you said, not everyone is going to have the same one. It's really how you're naturally propelled to go into your business. It does not have to be singular. This is the only right way, because there's just a lot of options. And I think it goes back to like what works for your life. There's an enjoyment and a balance there, and it has to work around your life and your schedule. It doesn't have to be this, you know, the Friday nights with clients. Like it can really be a way different thing. Do you feel like most advisors are open to that, or do you feel like you really have to work to tell them there really is no one way? Because I feel like a lot of times in this industry, we go to the conferences, we go see all the people, and they're like, this is how you do it. So is there a lot of rewiring?
Here's the example model week.
And here's my template.
Like in our coaching program, I'm like, here's 30 different model weeks, and look how freaking different they all are. Yeah. And really what I tell people is like, start bigger, like everything that we do, right? We start at a 10,000 foot level, and then we start to drill it down once we have a good feeling for it. So my first question is always like, how do you want to feel? Like, how do you want to feel coming into your week? And how do you want to feel at the end? And we do the same thing as we're building out processes. What is our client feeling coming into this step of the process? What do we want them to be feeling? And then you use the process itself to move you across that invisible bridge. So for most advisors, they want to come in feeling excited about the week, and then they want to leave feeling caught up and not like they're going to be worried all weekend about what didn't get done. And so we need to actually build the space then to move you through the week so that you finish the week in that way. And doing it in a way that honors your personality, your work style, what size team you have, how you need to integrate, what needs to be done when. But the biggest thing for me is it takes a lot of reflection. Like, okay, I built a model week. I tried it. What didn't work? What did I not leave enough time for? What did I have too much time in my model week that I started farting around? So like for me, I had client meetings and I would leave like a half hour in between the meetings, right? And my theory on paper was, oh, well, I'll do all my meeting notes and follow up after the meeting, and I'll give the team their tasks, and then I'll, quickly look over stuff for the next meeting and I'll be ready to go. But in reality, what happened is I knew I didn't have another meeting. And so I'd go 15 minutes over with that client. Then I'd be like, well, I only have 15 minutes left. Can't really get anything done now. So I'd go make a cup of coffee, go to the bathroom, bother my team for a few minutes. And then I'd have my next meeting. And I realized like there were probably 3 or 4 chunks in the day of this half hour that I just kind of pilfered away. So I had to try then, okay, well, what happens if I put them all back to back and do my 3 or 4 meetings back to back? And then had a block of time for follow-up. So I just had to test and try and say like, well, what didn't work? Was it that the model week didn't work? Or was it that I didn't actually follow the model week that I had laid out? And if I wasn't following it, why? And how do I fix it? And so that's where I love for advisors to start with that time study to see, well, what are you already kind of naturally doing? And then build off of that and start your time blocking and organizing all of your activities around your natural tendencies.
Yeah. And I think that's huge is honest. You have to be honest in your time study and you have to be honest in your time block. You cannot say, oh yeah, this 15 minutes was productive when realistically it wasn't. Like, I think honesty is a huge piece, and you cannot identify what is not being measured or tracked. That's just a huge piece of the puzzle. And so and I think you have a template for this as well, right? For people to go through and say, you can mark it green, yellow, red, like look at your time study. It's very efficient. So which is the name of your game. I also wanted to talk about, you had kind of mentioned the client, how you want the clients to feel when they come in as well. So it's not always just how you as an advisor wants to feel, but how the client wants to feel. So you talk a lot about the first 100 days of onboarding being really critical. What is kind of walk us through the big high level points of what you want that first 100 days to look like? Is there certain key metrics you want them to hit in that, or is it different by advisor? Kind of walk us through that first 100 days.
Yeah. So anything. So kind of like even to your question before when you were like, okay, well, where do we even start? We always want to zoom way the heck out, right? And so if an advisor is stuck or overwhelmed, we're probably too deep and we need to back way out. So there's 2 lenses that every process we have, we need to look at it through. There is the lens of the business. Like, how do we do this more efficiently? How do we do it better, faster, smarter, cheaper, easier, business side of it? Then there's the lens of client experience. And again, what is the client feeling coming into this? What are they feeling when they're leaving? What do we want them to be feeling? And then how do we use that process to move them over that invisible bridge? And so I'll give you kind of an example in the first 100 days, right? So if your process, if we're looking at it just through the lens of the business and you're the advisor and you're like, okay, great, we did our discovery, we gathered the data, we got the goals, we did the behavioral financy stuff, we had all the conversations, we analyzed all the data, we gave the clients the recommendations, and they said yes to us. So if your process as the advisor is, okay, client said yes, now I turn to director of operations and say, hey, get the paperwork going, I'm going to take the rest of the day off. Like, I'm going to go golfing, I'm going to go take a bath and read me some Bridgerton, like whatever your form of self-care is, you do you. But if that's your process, right, that might be really efficient for you as the business owner, but what we're neglecting is the actual experience that our clients are having. So there's a lot of data and science around the first 100 days of the client experience. And this is why I love this, because it's the most underrated process. Like, when we think about kind of the 8 core processes that exist, nobody is ever really like, oh, onboarding, that's so interesting. What a way
sexy
to connect with our clients, right? We think paperwork, we think transfers, rollovers, ACATs, and NIGOs. Like, that's what we think of when we think of onboarding.
Boring. Yeah.
Right. So boring. Yep. And when we start looking at it through the lens of the client experience, what we realize is the client is saying yes to us, right? They're like, oh my gosh, love all those recommendations. This is so exciting. And the minute they say, yeah, let's go ahead and draft the paperwork, they start to experience something totally different. We, the advisor, we're flooded with serotonin. We're thrilled. We're happy. We're like, yay, go me. New $2 million client. I'm amazing. I'm going to take the rest of the day. Everybody loves me. This is wonderful. And if your process is built around that, we're missing the fact that even our clients, they're so excited to work with us. They're immediately flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone. And it's their brain's natural way of protecting them. So they're like, yes, we're super excited to work with you. They're charming and fun and they sound really great. And then they're immediately filled with this, okay, what did I interview enough advisors? Did I Google everything? Should I have had a conversation with ChatGPT about these recommendations? Oh man, I got to break up with Dave. Dave was a great advisor. He was a really nice guy. What am I going to say to him? What's this going to look like at tax season? Oh man, I got to set up a new portal. I hope the password doesn't require uppercase and lowercase and special characters and numbers. And where am I going to keep that information? Oh, I got to connect my banking and double check. And do I need to let the attorney know that I updated all? Like they're going through a totally different journey. So if our process is just built on the business efficiency and not on the experience that our client is having, we're missing this opportunity that exists, right? We're missing the psychology that's happening for our clients. And so kind of the mindset shift that advisors need to have in this first 100 days, that there's actually a lot of data around the experience that people have in the first 100 days. So this was done by the Joey Coleman Company. There's a book called Never Lose a Customer Again.
He's amazing.
I love this book. It's so good. And I feel so dumb because I figured out a bunch of this crap on my own the hard way. And then I read his book and was like, well, that would have been a cheat sheet.
Thank you so much. It's like finding out like your senior year of high school about Cliff Notes. You could have had it.
Right. I trial and errored it and like I white knuckled it. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, look, it's all right here. And so like even something as simple as like, okay, our client is experiencing this stress over the having to break up with their previous advisor. If your process is, hey, look, we know you're going to have to break up with Dave and he was a really great guy and we're going to need you to say something to him because it can cause a lot of friction, right? For us as an advisor, right? You think like, okay, Dave gets the transfer notice. The first thing he's going to do, call your clients. And he's going to say, okay, what's going on? Let me take a look. Send me those recommendations. I'd love to get back together with you. I think we can do something similar here. And like, you're going to have clients that are like, okay, can't wait to break up with Dave. I can't wait to tell him what exactly I think of him. But then you're going to have some where they're in that cortisol phase, right? They're in that trepidation, like, oh, did I make the right decision? Should I give him another chance? Maybe I should hear what he has to say. So if your process is just where you leave it up to chance, right? We have this delicate window of time versus if you say, hey, look, we know you're going to have to break up with Dave. We know that's really complicated and kind of hard. You probably haven't broken up with anybody since high school. We have an email that you can copy and paste and you can send to him that thanks him for his service, tells him how much you appreciate the foundation that he's helped you build, that you've decided to go in another direction and you just wanted to say thank you so much. Like we've got that ready to go. You can copy and paste it, right? What your clients will hear in that is, oh, or maybe they didn't even, oh man, she's right. We didn't even know what we were going to say to him. Oh, that's so great. Wow. They've done this 1,000 times before. They are so professional. And so from the client experience side, it's like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Or, oh, I was thinking about that and I didn't know what I was going to say. Thank you so much. From the business side of things, well, now we don't have Dave getting in the way of processing business. So in the same lens, like I always think of it, I feel like I've talked about this a million times, but kind of like Uber versus a taxi, how Uber basically just went in and took out all of the friction points at every step in the process and went and said, how do we make it easier? How do we make it easier for taxi drivers to find passengers? How do we make it easier for passengers to find taxis? How do we make it easier to pay? How do we make it easier to calculate the cost? How do we make, like, what are all of the pain points? And how do we make it simple for the driver? And how do we make it simple for the consumer? And so we have to look at it through both lenses. And the average Uber driver is able to do 1.57 rides compared to every taxi because of the efficiency piece. So as a business, right, if we could do 1.57%, 157% of our business in the same amount of time because we've built in efficiencies. And, at every conference, I always ask the question from the stage of like, hey, how many of you took an actual taxi here from the airport to the hotel? And there's always like the same two hands that go up, like very specific 100%. Person. Yep. And then the other 99.97% of people raise their hands when I say, and how many of you took an Uber or a Lyft? And the difference isn't that Uber gets you there faster. It's not
No.
that it cost any less. It's not that the distance between point A or point B changes. It's that they've made it so freaking easy to work with.
Yeah.
Like they've made it easy to use. It's predictable. It's repeatable. They know exactly what to expect. And so we as business owners need to look at our first 100 days, all of our processes really through these two lenses and being really, really intentional about what is the friction that's happening for our clients during this particular window, whether it's onboarding, whether it's client service, our ongoing service experience, when it's we get a referral, like all of those processes need to have those two lenses considered.
Yeah. And I think it's also like an authority builder in a lot of ways. If it's like, hey, this is your email template, this is how you're going to handle it. I think a lot of times clients are looking to us to say how they should and shouldn't do things. So if we're able to say this is exactly how to do it, it just builds that authority that they did make the right decision and that you are going to hold their hand the rest of the time and you are going to help them just know what to do and how to do it. So, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. And the Joey Coleman Company, what they found was that the experience that people had during the first 100 days was the largest predictor of a couple of things, of the longevity of the client relationship, at the lifetime value of the client relationship, so bigger wallet share, and the number of referrals and the speed at which the referrals came. So when we started doing our elevated onboarding experience, we started getting referrals from clients that were brand new immediately because of those things, right? They're like, we've never experienced anything like this before. Wow, this is a extremely efficient and professional practice. They must do this all the time.
All
like
the
it
time.
builds trust faster.
Yeah. And you're like, I've only done this 10 times before you, but yes, we've done it a million times. This is all good. You know what I mean? Like when you first rolled it out, and now you have, like now you have done it a million times and you're like, I know it works and it is efficient. But I even think too, I read a stat that was like, compared to if you have a bad experience, it's like you're going to tell 11 different people about your bad experience. Whereas if you have a good experience, you're only likely to tell 3 people about it. So the more you can embrace that, hey, you did have a good experience. It was very quick that you had that good experience, they're more likely they're going to tell people versus if they don't have a good experience, they're sure as heck going to go tell everybody they know about it. And that's going to hurt you in the long run. So I think just knowing.
Yeah. And there's something too about like, even if they're having a good experience, there's a novelty window that applies. So if you went to the exact same restaurant every year for your anniversary, in the very first year you went, it was the first time you'd ever been, and it was amazing experience. You're more inclined to tell somebody about it because it was new versus if you went to that same restaurant every year on your anniversary, at year 10, you still got the same great service, the same amazing atmosphere, the same wonderful food. It's like you come to expect it. So same thing with advisors. If you have an exceptional client service model, your clients kind of forget what it was like before you, right? That there was another advisor who only called them once a year or only, reached out to them when they reached out. Right? We forget how good we have it. So it's really, really important in that early on in the relationship to establish like, whoa, there is this significant difference between what you've experienced previously and what you're experiencing with us.
Yeah. Almost like lean into the honeymoon phase a little bit, like make them feel like it's the best time ever, and then it moves on. But I think that's awesome. I kind of want to talk a little bit also about more of like the mindset game and kind of the identity part of where you're helping advisors. And a big part of efficiency is decision clarity. And I know a lot of advisors kind of have more of a reactive versus a proactive response in their mindset. How do you kind of teach them and help them in that? Like, you actually really need to be proactive about this. Like, even if you've done really well in business, it's not reactive, it's proactive.
Yeah. So most advisors that I work with coming like into our programs, right? One of the biggest goals of our group coaching, of our onboarding course, all of it is to shift from being reactive to proactive. And most advisors are running their business in what I would call like inbox mode, right? Like the emails dictate their day, what their client requests are dictate their day, their staff questions, whatever is screaming at them the loudest is what actually dictates how they show up. And when your business is run that way, you're always reacting to the work instead of actually getting ahead of it and designing. So we want them to step into this role of kind of like embodying what we call like the Ritz-Carlton concierge, right? In the Ritz-Carlton concierge, Their mission is to anticipate their guests' needs before they themselves even know that they have the need, right? So if we think about that as a business owner, it's we need our team to know what they're supposed to be doing, right? Ahead in advance. Like they have their marching orders. We have a service calendar lined up. We have a thoughtful approach to kind of all of those 8 core processes. We need to have them laid out. What does it look like? When does it happen? When do we need to be working on that in advance? And it's really this shift of it even really, like Molly, I think about it even through the lens of like a lot of advisors are doing annual reviews. And even just the phrase annual review feels so reactive. Here's what happened to us over the last year, kind of almost as if you have no control, right? Here's what happened. Your account went up, your account went down, your net worth went up, your liabilities went down. Here's the changes that we made to your portfolio. And we focus on kind of like what happened, where as advisors, we want to be the strategic thinking, like we want to be strategic.
Yeah.
And so even for me in my own business, when we went from hosting annual reviews to strategic annual meetings, where this was our annual strategy session. So here's what happened to us. Who cares? That's history.
But this is what we're going to do. Yes.
You could look that up online. Yeah. Here's what we're going to be doing for you. Here's how we're going to strategically add value to you over the next 12 to 24 months. And so in order for an advisor to make that shift, we need to know what are we going to do to strategically add value to these people each and every year? And how do we go a mile deep versus a mile wide on certain topics? Like how are we actually going to show up? And it is a really big shift to make. And it's really hard when you're drowning. It's really hard to think about, well, what kind of lifeboat am I going to build in the future? But it requires time and space. And so if anything, if anybody listening hears anything that I say, it's building in CEO time. And I personally love a once a quarter, a full day off-site where your team's not there, you're not in your working space. It's not the day that you're like catching up on the plan for the Joneses. It's literally just carving out time to think strategically about your business. That for me is the number one way that advisors can move from a reactive state to a more proactive state, is actually carving out the time to build that out and roll it out and implement.
I love that. And I think that's huge. Like just even one takeaway, and it's like, just take that time to think about it. And I think too, it's hard to build a boat when it's already raining, right? Like I think about the ark, like it's not like you can't build the ark when the flood's already here. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So like, and if you're in the middle of the flood, you're not caring about the size of the ark. You're literally just finding the life raft or whatever. But I think you have to intentionally do it. And it does take that time. So taking that CEO time, if maybe it's just the only thing you do, and then you kind of build on that, that's perfect. So I think that's huge. And I think a lot of advisors are still stuck in this mindset that systems and processes and all of that is just unfun. It's not very good. It's just the thing that you kind of have to do. You know, I hear all the time, it's so boring. And I'm like, yeah, but like life is sometimes boring. You got to do it. So what's kind of the myth that you kind of teach them that it's not burnout? It's not necessarily they have to shed this myth in order to scale. Like what's something that you would just teach them in general about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I'm being honest, systems and processes like aren't that fun.
No.
But what it does is it gives you the bandwidth to do the stuff that actually is really fun and really cool. And often the things that are most impactful like are not that sexy. But the cool part is once you build it, and I think advisors like, so if we think, okay, systems and processes, like how do I get myself excited or motivated to do it? The biggest exciting, motivating thing is when we look at it through the two lenses, right? So if we're going to approach it just through the, well, we do this and we send this email. Then 3 days later, we send a welcome packet and here's what's in there. And 2 days later, we do this. If we think of it just through the business efficiency lens, it can be a little lame. But when we also then apply the client experience lens to it, that's actually where most advisors get excited is, okay, well, what is our client thinking and feeling? How can we wow them? How can we surprise and delight them? How can we knock their socks off? How can I create a more strategic meeting? And so before even systems and processes, I like to kind of even peel it back and just say, what is the impact that you're having on your clients? And if we can start building a more strategic way to deliver impact, then you have to start thinking like, okay, well, we want to do something really impactful for our clients. So let's say we want to blow up the idea of a annual review where we're just going to go over whatever happened to them. And we want to think really strategic. We want to build a strategic session, right? Like this is our annual strategy session. In order to be able to build that, we're going to have to do some things ahead of time. So we're going to need, so let's say this year we want to do a big tax analysis for all of our clients. Well, we're going to have to get their tax returns. We're going to have to get it into Holistiplan or whatever. We're going to have time to do the analysis. So in order for us to be able to deliver that high impact meeting, we're going to have to build out some processes ahead of time. And when we build that stuff out, that's how we can delegate it. That's how we can automate it. A lot of what we look at is the stuff that we're even doing necessary? So I always say automate, delegate, delete. Is there stuff that we're doing that actually doesn't have that high of an impact?
Yeah.
Like there's so much time and energy and money spent on things that we're doing just because we've always done them that way. Mm-hmm. Right. And we haven't really actually paused to say, like, is that thing that I'm doing really impactful? And that's the stuff that tends to cause burnout, is we're running ourselves ragged doing these things that don't actually drive a lot of results. And so when we start thinking through this impact lens, and we have a framework that we use called the impact score, and it's like a measure of impact and it's a measure of difficulty. And we start thinking through the lens of like, well, is this actually really impactful, and how easy or hard is it for us to execute? And that's where we can start taking this stuff away that's been the thing that's dragging us down and gives us the capacity to get excited about client experience, to get us excited about a new ideal client avatar, or building out processes that will make our lives easier, because we're getting rid of the ick and really doubling down on the things that actually matter. And it's just taking that time to get super clear on it. And that's where it starts to get fun. Like in our group coaching program, like nobody comes in and they're like, I can't wait to build processes for 10 months.
It's going to be my favorite thing.
Right. But when we start at a high level, I'm like, okay, how do we want people to feel? What do you want to feel? What do you want your team to feel? What do you want it to look like? People get like super excited, and it's fun to see that momentum then kind of carries through down into the granular tasks. And when we start carrying like even like this email template, like how does it make your ideal client avatar feel? Does it set the stage for expectations? Do they know what to do next? Like, do we know how this play? Like, and it's so much more fun when we look at it through two lenses and we don't think about it just as a means to an end.
Yeah. And I think too, just having that momentum is huge, and having someone like you come in and say, hey, this is going to impact your business. This is how it's going to impact your business. And this is how it's going to help your clients. I think sometimes they just need that, a little bit of that encouragement to say, yes, by doing it, it is going to work.
Well, and it's such a big thing, right? Like, so if you're like, I'm going to sit down tomorrow and I'm going to build my prospect to client process, that is a big, huge, hairy, ugly. I mean, it takes us 10 weeks in our group coaching program to build that whole thing out. But by taking it and breaking it down into little tiny bite-sized pieces, that actually, I don't ever say it makes process fun, but it makes it a little bit more fun. It's when you sit down and try to do it in one big foul swoop, or process change is actually really hard. So if you try to go from, like, we rate processes like where you're at on a scale of 1 to 5. So if you're coming into our program as a 1, your goal is to leave a 3. It's not to be a 5, right? Like it's just to be incrementally better than you were before. And sometimes I think when we sit down with that blank piece of paper and we're like, what would a level 5, highly experiential, fully automated process look like? That's so overwhelming.
Yeah. Nope, I feel that. And it's very, I love the expectation of you don't need to get to a certain level. You need to just improve slightly, because I feel that. I mean, even we see it with data tracking. It's like, okay, now I've got to be doing all this million pieces of data. And it's like, you actually don't. You need to do 5 pieces of data tracking and use those in your practice. You cannot do it all at once. Like, that just is going to be horrible for you in general.
Well, and it's funny because like we apply that so naturally to like other areas of our life. Like, you know, like, okay, I want to get in shape. If I wake up and try to run a marathon tomorrow, like that's not going to work. So
literally the first place my mind went. Yeah. Like, let's do it.
But for some reason we carve out one day to work on our business, and we're like, today's the day, and we have to build this whole thing. Yeah. And it has to be like ultra amazing. And really that is one of the fastest ways to be like, I don't have time for that. And when you're doing it just a little bit, like doing it messy and moving it forward, it doesn't have to be perfect. So like we always say, like, do it messy. You can come back and make it fancy later, but get that crappy first draft down and just do it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Perfection is not attainable in so many ways. Like, it's, again, you're going to say you're a professional athlete because you started working out. Like, you're not going to make it. Like, you're going to give up, you're going to burn out, and it's just not going to be ideal. So, Libby, thank you for your time first. And as we kind of wrap up here, how can people get in touch with you through one of your programs if they're ready to transform their practice? What are the best ways to kind of get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'd love to invite everybody to listen to the Efficient Advisor podcast. We were recently rated on the Kitsos list as one of the top podcasts for advisors in the practice management space. So in good company. And that's probably the best way to start learning. Like, every week we try to give a very tactical, tangible, like, hey, do this small thing in your business and it'll make a big impact. You can also find me over on LinkedIn. That is the main platform that I hang out at. And of course, over at theefficientadvisor.com.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time. And kind of last question as we wrap up, we ask everybody this, but where are you trekking this year? Maybe personally or professionally? What is a goal for you this year that you want to accomplish?
Yeah, so my big goal for this year is nothing new. So my goal is not to add anything to my plate, but to focus on refinement. So I talk a lot about do it messy and make it fancy later. So we're in a space this year where the goal is actually refinement. So going back and polishing those little pieces or those little things that we're like, okay, we're on a scale of 1 to 5, we're a 4. Like, how do we make it exceptional this year? So this year, our trek is really seeking the remarkable and not adding anything new. Like, trying to put on those blinders to all of the fun, interesting, shiny objects and actually follow through on our own advice of making it fancy later.
I love that. I love that because I feel like it's practical. It's, hey, get back to the grinding, but in the best way. We don't need more shiny things. And we tell advisors that all the time. Don't focus on the shiny. Get in your businesses and you stand for that, the efficiency, and get into the processes and systems. So I love that. We're rooting for you. Thank you so much again, Libby, for your time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.